down. Hey everyone, we're back on the road. We wanted to have a conversation about working through stress. And stress is not the end of the world, it's part of life. And it's an invitation to keep growing so that way you can bring more to each and every day. So let's get into it. All right, I brought my secret weapon, my wife, my best friend, Sarah Joy. She's gonna be kind of guiding the conversation, and I'll be sharing some of the things I've learned through this journey.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a few questions. When it comes to stress, it's not just one thing. Most of the time, it's not just one thing that you need to fix. You don't necessarily just need to read more books or like play more golf in order to be less stressed. It's usually a combination of things, and so we're just going to go through a few different things that have helped us along the way. Oh my gosh, squirrels in the street, they're taking their time. So the first one is, let's talk about food, because I know we kind of alluded to that last time. Tell us about where you've been on a food journey and what you've learned.
Yeah, so for me, eating was when you kind of tune out, and it was my opportunity to kind of just sit down and unplug. And that was actually the time I needed to get involved and engaged and be aware of what was going into my system. Food can affect the way you feel, and it is important that you're putting the right stuff in your system. And so two things that I would say that were helpful for us and for me was, number one, just keeping a food journal for a few days and just getting exposed to the cause and effect relationship between what I was putting in my system and how I was feeling because of it.
Yeah.
And then number two was just being more aware and learning what all these ingredients were, to see them not just for their flavor but for the fuel that they provided. And so look at the labels, and if there's stuff in there that you don't know much about, just put it in a search engine, ask a friend who's a few steps ahead of you, and you need to be engaged and learning through this process.
If you can't pronounce it or it doesn't sound like the Lord made it, you shouldn't eat it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have another question that I wrote down. So my next question is, if you feel like all of your energy is zapped and you're just mentally maxed out, do you think you need more sleep and rest, or do you need to actually push yourself to get out of it?
Yeah, that is so good, because it feels opposite, right? You feel like, oh, what I need is to do nothing. But ironically, if you're doing nothing, or if you're binging on a lot of media, you could actually come out of it feeling even worse, feeling drained. It was a big paradox when I realized that doing something active actually put energy into the mix. And so working out or just walking, and that's where I started, was just walking more, getting water, and then, scaling up from there with workouts. And guys, I was not that person who was looking forward to exercise, but when you have someone you're going to work out with, or you're just making the experience a little more enjoyable, you're taking away the friction of what you're going to wear, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. All those things just kind of reduce the friction, so that way you can just focus on what matters, and that's pushing yourself so you can get the energy to power through. And because of it, I'm feeling much better. Yeah, so I learned not all sleep is equal. There was a time when even the kind of sleep I was getting was stressful. So I would wake up feeling exhausted, and I needed to learn how to better prepare myself to go into deep, restful sleep. And so there are some tactical things you can do, like, having a cooler environment, getting, supplements like melatonin, weighted blanket, the right pillow,
dark room,
just different things you can do. externally, but then internally, giving yourself enough time to unwind, unplugging from devices and the blue light, and just going through an evening sequence that will help you let go of the day and enjoy the evening.
I actually wrote a blog on this, I think last week, about do these things at night to set yourself up for a great day. And if you haven't checked out that blog, that would be a really good thing to do, because he gives you some very practical things. So I won't go through them all in here, but you should check out the blog for sure. Okay, so whenever somebody is walking through stress or walking through like physical symptoms in their body that have to do with stress or anxiety or whatever, do you think that they should be really open about it and let everybody into that journey, or kind of go on that healing journey themselves and let people in on it later?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say you need to be really, really open with a few people, a few trusted people. And for us, we're so grateful that we have amazing friends, mentors, a great support system. And so just finding a rhythm where you can open up instead of holding things in and just kind of being in denial that something needs attention, or blabbing it and just telling everyone how you feel every day. You got to find the balance. There's a sweet spot in the middle where you are able to open up at the right time with the right people.
I think one thing that was good that you heard at one point is the way your body heals is like one step at a time, and sometimes it's not even, it's like if you even think about like losing weight or building muscle or anything, it happens just a little bit at a time, so you don't necessarily notice the difference day to day. That's why, if you're going to start like a fitness journey or whatever, you need to take a before picture and an after picture. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to notice those little changes that happen. And so the same thing goes for, if you're feeling really stressed or overwhelmed or whatever. If you do let a few people in on it, just giving them, a time or a day of the week to check in on you is better than just this constant, every time they talk to you, hey, how are you feeling today? How are you feeling today? Because it doesn't change fast enough for you to feel like you're making any progress, and you might even feel more discouraged than encouraged, because you think, oh, I actually still feel really bad, which if they would have just given you a week, then you could say like, oh, compared to last week, I feel so much better. So just a simple tip is to just to not let the frequency be so high that where people are allowed to ask, where you don't feel like you're making any progress.
Definitely.
So whenever people have like really important jobs or responsibilities, that's a lot of times what leads to stress. Obviously some other like bad habits or toxic things can lead to stress as well. But do you think the remedy for it is to get out of leadership, to stop doing things, to stop taking responsibility, or is it to just implement it differently?
Yeah, I think hopefully you can grow through that, because you're going to have more to give on the other side. You're going to have lessons learned. You're going to have victories that other people need. That's why we share our stories, because they give hope and they give a path to healing for others. And so my hope is that people can, process it appropriately and be, add value to other people's lives. There is going to be a challenge, to escape and to say, I just want to get out of here. But you're going to have to learn how to escape the tendencies that would cause you to shut down or to let your guard down. And you're going to have to stay engaged when you're serving other people well, and just keep the mission, the focus.
So I think that leads into my next question. I think sometimes, depending on your personality type, you might have a problem with saying no to people or letting other people down. And so you end up taking way too much on yourself that you shouldn't, because you don't you don't want to tell people no, or you want to be the hero. So where's the balance between serving too much, or on the other extreme, knowing that you need self-care and to put time into yourself, and then becoming too self-absorbed? Does that make sense? So how do you find the balance, or should you focus on self-care, or should you focus on serving others, or like how do you do both?
Absolutely. There's a ditch on either end of the road. You can put too much focus on serving other people that you become depleted. On the other end, you can become too self-absorbed and just think that self-care is going to be the solution when you're kind of missing the point. So I think the balance is just having boundaries, so that way you have that margin to take care of yourself, so that way when you get back on the field of life, you have more to give and you're hitting the ground running, energized. It's just really about knowing how to bring the best of you to each moment, not the rest of you after you've been worn down.
Yeah, I think the main thing is just finding balance in every area of life. And the other thing to really keep in mind is that a lot of times there's nothing wrong with you. It's just simple things that you've let creep into your life. And even like on a very, very practical sense, a lot of times stress and anxiety can come from things like too much blue light, or too much artificial lighting and not enough outdoor lighting, or too many additives in your food, and too much caffeine. So like sometimes you think that your life is just really crazy and that you are really dealing with a lot of, mental stuff or work stuff. And if you were to just change your food, or to just turn off your Wi-Fi router at night when you're trying to sleep, or to just give yourself more time away from your phone, those things at work would get a lot better, or those things with family would get a lot better. Just because you're physically feeling better, then you can just be more emotionally suited to respond better to the things around you if you're in a great spot. It's like if you've not had enough sleep, then you can get way more emotional than you should.
Totally.
Or, like even little kids have like meltdowns if they haven't had their nap, and they start freaking out over stuff. Like, we're pretty much the same way. So if we're not eating things that are nourishing us, if we're not sleeping enough, resting enough, if we're not, letting our body enter that really like state of rest, even mental rest, then you will kind of like go crazy and not be able to like give good responses to the things that come around you. So you can just be like an all-around better person with better stress management if you just do the practical things.
Yeah, I mean, when you are like stretched and stressed, you get drastic. You you start going to extremes, and so by definition, the remedy is be a little more centered, be a little more balanced, be a little more temperate, and realize that the solution may not have to be something as extreme as what you're feeling. It might just be staying focused on doing the right things, in moderation.
Well, I hope you guys have learned something today. We just want to give you guys a few more practical tips in order to help you guys. We know that pretty much if you live in the U.S. or if you live just in this, day and age culture, there's a lot of stress that's on people that wasn't there before. So usually in some aspect, almost everybody is going through some type of stress, and it's really great to know how to balance it and how to just avoid some of the pitfalls. And so if you can learn anything from us, we are here to serve.
Stay encouraged, guys, and know that you don't have to take on everything at once. Focus one choice at a time, one step at a time. Life is a marathon, and so really keep up the motivation. And these conversations are important now because you're going places, and that's why you have to prepare to go there. See ya.